Welcome back to another episode of the Even Year Dynasty Show. It's Friday night. The weekend is here. Winter meetings are coming Sunday. Niners Eagles are coming Sunday. So we got a good one coming up this weekend. It's hopefully finally the end of the slow news cycle. But what we're going to talk about today on today's episode is back on Tuesday, they actually recorded it, but Wednesday they released it. Dave Flemming gave an interview with Tim Kawakami, dropped some good nuggets in there. We're going to kind of go over what was said, some of our main takeaways from that, and go from there. The main thing is Flemming did say that the Giants are in quotes in hard on all of the big players. So I think this is not really a surprise to anybody. This is nothing really new. Everybody kind of knew that they were going to be going hard at any of the big names, whether it's Ohtani, Yamamoto, Bellinger, Snell, Chapman, etc. We all kind of knew that was the case. Another kind of not surprising nugget, and I'm not going to do these all necessarily in order in which he talked about, but another nugget he dropped in there was it's kind of Ohtani and Yamamoto number 1 and 2, kind of based off the Morosi report. That's not really a surprise either, but everything's going to kind of cascade from there. He does believe with Ohtani that the team feel, that there's a lot of comfort with the Giants as far as he likes the city. He obviously respected Buster a lot. This is kind of, I think, his impressions from the first time they tried to recruit him to the Giants. But he likes Buster. He likes the city. He feels, he's confident that with Bob Melvin, with his track record with guys like Ichiro and Hideki and Yu Darvish, that there's going to be a level of respect there. So he does think that the biggest hurdle for them is just going to be proving that they can build a winner. So where he went with that is, he thinks that there may be as many as 3 moves in the next 10 days. Now, that was backdating this back to Tuesday. So, that kind of stretches out maybe a little bit beyond the end of the winter meetings. But, he said that even with a contract as big as Ohtani's, there's some guys, and he thinks guys like Jung-Hoo Lee, for instance, out of Korea, the center fielder, that they might be able to, whether it's Ohtani or Yamamoto that they're working on, he thinks that that's a deal that they might be trying to work on simultaneously, or a guy like Chapman. So he did kind of touch on that, which that makes a lot of sense. You're not going to be able to convince Ohtani to come if there's not going to be more. There's no way he's coming if he's the only move. So I think any Giants fan can kind of accept that reality. So he did say that that's a guy, and that would fill a huge need. They have a massive hole in center field right now. All due respect to Mike Yastrzemski and Austin Slater, who did an admirable job trying to play center field last season. They're not good defenders out in center. They're better suited to corner outfield spots. And then you have Tyler Fitzgerald, who they like to say might be the best defensive center fielder in the system. I've already made it my opinion clear on that, where there's a couple guys that I think are more natural fits there that are in the lower levels, though, that may or may not end up being good players. But, he's a big unknown. He really just started playing center field this past season. So, and he's not proven at the major league level. So I don't think they're ready to just turn over the center field job to Tyler Fitzgerald. So Jung-Hoo Lee would make a ton of sense to sign on top of one of those other guys. So it makes sense there. Chapman, it's not a surprise. There's a big connection there. Whether I think it's a great fit or not, as far as a great investment or not, going for a guy like Matt Chapman. A lot of people in the organization like him. I like him as a player. And frankly, if signing Matt Chapman got Shohei Ohtani to decide he wanted to come play, you'd do it every day of the week, and you wouldn't care about what the contract looked like at the end. So that's another guy that I could see popping up as a deal potentially soon. The other name that he brought up was Rhys Hoskins, who is he's a Sacramento native. He does talk about how he's a Giants fan. Fleming says that like they'll go to Philadelphia, and I think the example he used was Hoskins would come in and talk to Fleming before the game down on the field and go, "Oh, there's no Dwayne Kuiper today," or Dwayne's on assignment or Kuip's on assignment, and so he's a guy that still keeps track, and he's probably looking at a 1-year prove it deal coming off of the ACL injury. I don't know if that's necessarily a good fit. Also, the fact that he's realistically better suited to be a DH. I mean, he's a very poor defender at first base. Guy can hit. They certainly could use hitters, but they seem to have a lot of guys that already are, kind of almost better fit for DH roles. Haniger and Conforto come to mind. Flores. Two of those guys are already right-handed, so I'm not sure there's a great fit there. I don't think Wade's necessarily a great defensive first baseman by any stretch. He's kind of average to below average, if anything, but he's probably significantly cheaper. And with Hoskins, if you do somehow manage to pull in a guy like Ohtani, it's like, are you going to just play him at first and deal with really shoddy defense over there? Or, what do you do there? Now, granted, on the flip side of that coin, where I do think Hoskins could be a fit is if the Giants do manage to land Ohtani and, they get another, maybe they land Jung-Hoo Lee also. Hoskins could make sense as kind of a right-handed hitter to help balance the lineup out. Because you have to think you're going to still have Conforto. You're going to still have, they might have Yaz. They might have, they would have Lee, Yaz, Conforto, Ohtani. You're getting pretty lefty heavy in various parts of the lineup, and especially towards the middle of the lineup, where I'm not a big fan of lining up 3 righties or 3 lefties in the heart of your order. I could see how a guy like Hoskins could potentially make sense to try and break that up a little bit and give a guy like Ohtani more protection. So he could make sense, and but he might also want to go to a more hitter friendly environment and reestablish his value for next season. So you kind of saw that with Bellinger this past offseason, where the Giants were interested in him late in the offseason, but he went to Chicago to reestablish his value because, well, the Wrigley Field's a lot more hitter friendly than Oracle Park. So makes sense. The other takeaway is the Sonny Gray deal, which he signed, as we've been aware for a few days now. Sonny Gray signed a 3-year, $75 million contract with the Cardinals. I actually thought he would have been a really good fit with the Giants. Has a history with Melvin. Flemming even talked about how there's a history there and he could have been a good fit. It does, the one thing with Gray that I will mention is it did sound like he wanted to be closer to home, and he's from Tennessee. So it's not all that surprising that he went early in the offseason with the Cardinals interested and willing to pay him, 3 years at $25 million a year. So, and the thing Flemming said is the Giants weren't going to lock themselves into a big deal like that might potentially make it to where they couldn't pursue a guy later in the offseason that they really want. One of the big names that they really want to try. They don't want to block themselves because of taking on some huge salary commitment in Sonny Gray. So on one hand, it would have been a deal that would have made sense for the Giants, but at this stage in the offseason, and also I just think he wanted to go back closer to home. So I don't think that would have happened. But the last couple points here that kind of stood out in the Flemming interview. The first one was he does talk about kind of the break-even quote with Greg Johnson, which has been a point of discourse, you could say, with Giants fans. We've already talked about it a bit here, but he kind of, as I've been saying this entire time, he kind of reiterated they can blow past this competitive balance tax for a year. They can go push this payroll for a season. And the way he put it was, if it means getting a new core of players, maybe they go get 3 guys that it's going to push their payroll kind of way high for a season, but they have so few payroll commitments beyond this year and specifically 2026 when Logan Webb is the only guy actually under contract. But they have so few payroll commitments beyond this year that they could blow by it for a year, and he's not going to want to pay the repeater tax, but he can comfortably get back under the competitive balance tax next season, and they'll have a new core, be ready to go, and hopefully kind of pushes them into being a yearly contender. So he thinks that they are willing and fine with blowing by that for a year. So really any big name, if they do happen to land someone, I wouldn't be sitting here thinking that that's it. If they get Ohtani or they get Chapman or Yamamoto, or if they somehow pull in one of these guys, I would, any of the other big names that are still on the market, I'd be willing to bet the Giants are, in hard on, as Flemming said. So he did touch on that. And then the other thing was, and I think we all could have kind of read between the lines on, how Bob Melvin is as a coach. I don't think he would have ever just sat back like Kapler did and acted as a yes man and done everything that Farhan wanted. But he did say that he gets the impression that Farhan wants somebody to give him more pushback. And I don't know if they called it like creative dissonance or healthy dissonance. And, just they, kind of like what the example they used was Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, who have this great working relationship, don't agree on everything though, and they'll push each other to be the best at their jobs that they can. So nothing really surprising there. But it was a lot of good nuggets kind of in the interview. It was a really entertaining one. I highly recommend anybody listen to it that hasn't already. If you just type in Dave Flemming TK show or something like that on Google, I'm sure it'll be like the first result that comes up. So other than that, that's all I have for today. Winter meetings start Sunday. Hopefully we have some news coming soon. I know a lot of Giants fans are getting restless. I'm not the most patient person. I just want something to happen at this point and kind of it's that really boring time of the off season. So hopefully we get some action going. Other than that, if you like this, subscribe, comment. I always like to read the comments. I try and interact in there. If you have questions that you want on the show, put them down in the comments and I'll try and add them into the next show. Other than that, you can also follow me on Twitter. Handle is at EYD Show. And you drop me messages there as well if you want questions on the show. Other than that, hopefully we get some action here soon, and I will catch everybody on probably Sunday. Bye.